Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Questioning the Weird. So imagine this, you're driving down the road and you see a young woman on the side of the street. You pull over and ask if she needs a ride. She gets in the back of your car and you start driving. When you ask her where she needs to go, she just keeps giving you very vague and hesitant answers. But then suddenly when you pass the old cemetery, she starts screaming to stop the car. And then when you do, she vanishes. Well, that's what we're going over this week on Questioning the Weird. The story of Resurrection Mary, one of the world's most famous hitchhiking ghosts, which is here in Chicago, Illinois. But hitchhiking ghosts are nothing new. And the difference between Resurrection Mary and these other stories is Resurrection Mary left some visible proof for us all to look at. So sit back, dim the lights, and enjoy this week of Questioning the Weird. Resurrection Mary. Resurrection Mary dates back to the 1930s. Many reports came from drivers driving down Archer Avenue just outside Chicago in Justice, Illinois. All the reports would be the same of people seeing a young woman in the middle of the night walking down the side of Archer Avenue. It's not the safest to be walking down the side of the road, but there's nothing paranormal about that. But for those who would stop and offer her a ride, this is where things would get scary. If she would get into their car, she would mysteriously disappear as they passed the cemetery right on Archer Road. But for some of those, it was even worse. Say they would be driving down Archer, and then all of a sudden a woman would stand in front of their vehicle and be hit by the car. But once they would stop, they wouldn't find anybody and no damage to the car, even evidence of even a hit. There was even a report by the police of somebody hitting somebody on Archer Avenue right outside Resurrection Cemetery. When the police surveyed the area, they didn't find any evidence of a hit, but when they searched the grass right off to the side, they could see the impression on the grass as if somebody was laying there. But other than that, there was no evidence of Mary to be found. So we've gone over the mystery or the urban legend of Resurrection Mary. But who is she? It's one of the biggest mysteries of this whole thing. No one is 100% sure who Mary is, but there are a few people that do fit the profile of Mary though. Our first Mary suspect was dancing at O. Henry Ballroom with her boyfriend that one night. When an argument broke out between the two of them, Mary decided to walk home and not get a ride from her boyfriend. While she was walking down Archer Avenue, she was struck by a vehicle and resulted in a hit and run, and she was left there to die. She was laid to rest only a few miles away from the hit down in Resurrection Cemetery. So this might be why some people have experienced ghost hit and runs on Archer Avenue. A different person that could be Mary was a woman named Marley. Her and her boyfriend were dancing at the same O. Henry Ballroom, and her and her boyfriend, after closing hours, decided to keep the night alive by going downtown Chicago and dancing. While driving, they lost control of the car and collided into an L support beam, resulting in Marley's death. One man got to know Mary quite well. His name was Jerry Paulus, and while he was at the Liberty Grove and Hall, where he met a woman and he danced and drank and talked to her all night, Jerry said that she was cold to the touch, and even when he snuck a kiss, her lips were pretty cold, freezing if you will. She told Jerry that she was from Bridgeport, yet when he offered her a ride and she said yes, she insisted on taking Archer Avenue down, which is a little bit out of the way. As soon as they passed Resurrection Cemetery, she asked him to stop the vehicle, got out, and she said goodbye and vanished into thin air. Jerry claimed for his whole life that this is a true story and that he would never make anything up like this. This last encounter with Mary is similar to the last. A cab driver picked up a young woman once near the cemetery, and she disappeared as soon as they passed the gates. Upset thinking she was trying to skip out of her fare, the cab driver pulled into the bar across the street from the gates. Once inside, he couldn't find the woman that he thought skipped out, and when he asked the manager about her, he said that he's never seen anybody walk in or out of the bar that night matching that description. So we have plenty of sightings and stories of Mary, but what about evidence? You'd be surprised to find out that in the 1970s, Mary decided to let people know that she was around and that they should know about her. On this night around 10:30 p.m., a driver passed the cemetery gates on Archer Avenue and saw a young woman trapped inside the cemetery. Thinking that maybe she was locked in by groundskeepers and wasn't able to get out in time, he rushed to the nearest phone and called the police. When the police and groundskeeper arrived at the scene, they opened up the gate and searched the cemetery but didn't find anybody. But what they did find was a little bit of Mary's handiwork. They found that the bars had been twisted and pulled, almost as if they were burnt looking, or even some say it looked as if lightning had struck it. At a closer look at the bars, it even looks as if there was finger indentions on the bars when they were twisted. Some even reported there was fingerprints ingrained on the bars. Now, the cemetery did try to repair the bars, but the repairmen even were quoted saying that they were unable to fix the bars correctly and didn't even know how it happened. They would later report that there are no ghosts in the Resurrection Cemetery and had the bars removed and that a truck backed up into them, damaging the gate. But it doesn't look that way to me. What do you think? Let me know below. So we may never know who Resurrection Mary actually is, but there's one thing that we do know that actually adds some more mystery around Archer Avenue. Archer Avenue is actually an ancient Native American path. Used for centuries, some have said that there has been a lot of energy left there from those days. But don't ever ask anybody at the bar across the street about this. They refuse to talk about Resurrection Mary and say it's not even a thing. But what they do is leave a Bloody Mary on the counter every night for her. Well, thanks for making it to the end of this video. So who do you think Resurrection Mary really is? Would you pick her up if you saw her on the side of the road? What about the cemetery? Do you think they're covering something up with removing the bars? Or is their story true about the gate being damaged by a truck? Let me know in the comments below. If you like spooky content like this, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all our videos, and let us know what you would like to see next on Questioning the Weird.